Hi, my name is Tyler Stallman, and today I want to talk to you about the Canon 5D Mark IV. I've had it for about 2 months now, and I've been waiting about 2 years, I don't know how many years, for this camera to be released like we all have. The 5D Mark III was extremely versatile, worked really well for all of us, but it was starting to age, and since so many other brands were iterating quickly, it was getting frustrating waiting. But here it is. I've spent about 8 weeks with it now, and I want to tell you what I thought of it. For context, the things that I usually shoot are lifestyle and fashion, which is mostly for my wife's blog, anibi.net. So we travel a lot, take thousands and thousands of photos every month. Yeah, so I have some strong opinions about this. I'm also the head of video over at Stocksy.com, so I spend a lot of time looking at footage and thinking about the quality of it. And we'd all hoped that Canon would use this as a chance to bring their DSLRs back into the video world, but based on the 1DX, we shouldn't be surprised that they are not doing that. That is not their game plan, and this is not really a video camera. It works great for it. We've used it for a couple of projects. Me and Alan, who's manning the camera right now, we shot it along with the A7R II, which is the camera being used right now, and they actually matched up pretty well. The way that they looked best together was actually using HDR mode on the Canon, which I haven't seen many people talking about yet. It's still kind of weird. I don't know if I'm going to commit to using it all the time, but it was the only way that I could get the dynamic range that I want out of a modern DSLR. Using S-Log2 or other log formats and so many other video cameras, you can get tons of dynamic range and make these small cameras look really beautiful. The Canon doesn't do that out of the box, and HDR mode only works in 30 frames per second, 1080. The 4K options are not options, as far as I'm concerned. It uses a really old codec called Motion JPEG, and the files it creates are way too big. I think I heard the other day that they're bigger than certain RED files that are RAW. So Canon didn't want to make this video camera. I'm sorry. It'll still work great for YouTubers or for personal home videos, but for filmmakers, it's just not what you need. I am holding on to some hope because some of these big problems I think can be fixed in the future. The fact that there's no peaking, they could always add that in firmware upgrades. The fact that there's no zebras, that could easily be added. And you know what? If Canon doesn't do it, Magic Lantern will, and whatever they're going to do with this camera is going to look amazing. The hardware is great. I think they just need to boost some things in software. I've been shooting with the A7R II a lot of the time lately. That's the newest camera that I was shooting alongside the 5D Mark III, and it really reminded me what the difference between a professional camera and a not quite professional camera is. Little things like construction quality and menu systems and just general reliability are why there's no chance that I'm going to move to the Sony. The Sony files look better. 42 megapixels, they're sharper, a little more dynamic range, lower noise. But you know what? That camera doesn't work for me at all. It crashes. It completely crashes for no reason pretty often. It writes way too slow. There are so many problems with it. The Nikons are obviously an option. If you already have Nikon lenses, I hear the 750 and the 810 are really amazing. Probably a little bit ahead of Canon at this point, but I'm already way into Canon glass. I prefer the Canon ecosystem, and I'm just glad that the 5D Mark IV was able to catch up to the point that I'm not jealous of any of the other brands anymore. It's close enough to the same level that I'm just really happy with it. Let's talk a bit about image quality. So when I had the 5D Mark III and the A7R II together, I compared those side by side, same lens, size to the same megapixels, and the A7R II was way sharper. I know the Nikon is similar, the 810, and I'm really happy to say that the 5D Mark IV now does not make me jealous of my other camera, which, usually my Sony is for video, by the way. So even though it does have sharper images, the difference isn't important anymore. The 5D Mark IV is sharp enough that in all circumstances, I won't notice the difference. There's no time when I'm going to wish for a little bit more of it. Anytime in print, it will look perfect. The place that the Mark III was really behind the other sensors was in latitude, especially in the shadows. So if you wanted to get a bit more dynamic range out of your image, you could underexpose and raise it. So that's what you do with the Sonys and the Nikons, but with the Canons, you got all this muddy noise in the shadows. And now with the 5D Mark IV, it is more or less caught up. Again, it is still slightly behind. It is not exactly the same image quality, but it's definitely good enough. And again, since I love Canons, I'm not going to be switching for the small amount of difference that I could see there. So as you already know, this is a 30 megapixel camera, which to me is pretty great. The Sony is 40 something, the Nikon is plus 40, and Canon has the 5DS that is over 50. And you know what? Nobody needs that. Well, okay, not nobody. There are some people out there that definitely need to print things that big or crop in that much, or for VFX work. There are needs for more than 30 megapixels, but it is not most people, including for shooting for billboards and magazines. 25 is pretty great. 30 is a little more than I need. I actually am often shooting in medium raw, which unfortunately loses a bit of dynamic range, so I'm only doing that for web stuff. When I need the extra quality, I'll shoot in 30, and you know what? It's perfect. It's a really great balance. All right, I got a list of details as well that I want to go over, and these are some of the things that I love and don't love so much about specifics in the camera. First, Wi-Fi. This is really small, you'd think, but it's actually a big deal to me because I shoot a lot of stuff on the road. I need to upload things mobilely, and something that was really fun lately is I've been doing Instagram stories, uploading directly from Wi-Fi video, and stuff like that is great. I love doing it. It had to happen. Thanks for adding it, Canon. GPS. This isn't on any other cameras I've had except my iPhone, but honestly, I love seeing the little points fill out in my Lightroom map. And I don't know if it's important for anything, but I just like filling out all my metadata. I'm really glad it's there. I keep it on all the time. Auto ISO has some new arithmetic to it so that it can calculate based on lens sizes and shutter speeds and combine that information to get a more accurate minimum shutter speed. So you can set it to faster or slower instead of just a fixed number. This means that Auto ISO is just a lot more useful than it used to be, because often you'd have to set it to one fixed minimum shutter speed and then let it do the rest of the work, and often it would make really stupid decisions. Adding USB 3, that's a small detail, but you know what, if you shoot tethered, it's not such a small detail. Okay, this one's actually a bigger deal. It's negative. The battery life is worse, noticeably worse. Canon said it was something like 10%. I feel like it's 30%. I am now going through more than a battery in each shoot. Like a full battery will get drained in a day of shooting, whereas it used to be that I could usually just, by the end of the day, my battery's almost dead. Now it is completely dead, and I need to replace it before the day is over. That's too bad, but you know what? It's probably worth it for the other features I just mentioned. Also, the touchscreen, this was something I thought would be a bit of a gimmick. I wasn't that excited about it. Now that it's here, I can't go back. I'm touching the screen of my Sony all the time, which does nothing at all. And another part of that is the facial tracking in live shooting. So it used to be that, if I'm gonna get low, I'd have to do this and keep my knees bent the whole time. Now, a lot of the time, I'm just holding my camera lower and watching the facial tracking on the screen. So I don't even need to change focus points. It is automatically tracking faces. Sometimes I can correct it with my thumb. It's so much better to shoot that way. The only downside is this really should be a flip screen. One feature that got a lot of hype is dual pixel RAW. And like I said, I've had this camera 2 months and I haven't used it yet because I don't really care. This might be something important in the future. This type of technology will be really influential for photography in the long run. This version doesn't seem to make a very big difference. In all the tests that I've seen, the amount of focus adjustment you can do is really minimal. So I'm going to wait till somebody does it very differently before I start playing around with it. A detail that jumped out at me as soon as I shot with this camera is the sound of the shutter. I actually checked to make sure that I didn't have it on silent because it's so much quieter than the 5D Mark III shutter. There is a mechanical buffer that slows the mirror mechanism as it moves to reduce the vibration, makes it a lot quieter, and sounds so much better. Silent is just as loud as it was before, but the standard shutter is now much quieter, and I love it. I can't go back. So in the 5D Mark III, the autofocus got a lot better. That was the biggest change between the 5D Mark II and III. Now I was ready for it to happen again. There were details about how the 5D Mark III focused that really frustrated me. I didn't trust it at 1.4, 1.8. I often wouldn't shoot below 2.8 just because I didn't think it could get critical focus. Often it would be just slightly off, even with micro adjustments. Now with 5D Mark IV, I'm shooting below 2.8 all the time. It is doing so much better. It can shoot in much darker environments and still acquire focus perfectly, especially if you use the center point. The wider focus spread is really important, and everything I was talking about earlier about tracking faces using live view, is fantastic. Again, I really wish that the screen popped up because live view is limited to where you can be standing. You have to hold the camera in front of your face instead of below. But it is much better. It's where it needs to be. It's as good as the 1DX, and this is a very modern autofocus system that I can trust, which makes me happy. So what do I think of the 5D Mark IV? Well, honestly, this is the best camera I've ever worked with for stills. It's not really a video camera. I already said that. But I think that a lot of people were kind of underwhelmed when they heard the specs on this. They were hoping for another revolution. In the 5D Mark I, the full frame sensor really changed what you could get in a prosumer level camera. At that price range, nothing else was like that. In the 5D Mark II, they changed it again with video. We had no idea that you could do this with the DSLR. It was not in the cards until Canon did it. So twice they've changed the game. 5D Mark III was pretty safe. Now this is definitely just a safe series. And honestly, I'm glad. I don't want to be worried about buying this camera because it may not be able to meet my needs. I can trust it. I know what it does. I know how to use it. And I'm okay with other brands doing some of the innovation for a little while. But it's not going to last. This might be the last generation that Canon can kind of go this slowly. Since I got this, the A99 from Sony's been announced, which brings a lot of the A7R2 features in to a more robust stills camera. So Canon could fall behind pretty quickly. Other cameras could end up doing all of the video and all the stills stuff. So even though I'm happy with it for now, for this generation, I think Canon's got to pick up their game a little bit. But anyway, in the end, I'm happy. I'm so happy with this camera. I'm using it every day, and I'm going to be using it for years to come. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Go to stallman.com and follow me on Twitter. I'm Stallman all over the internet.